Okay, hello everyone, and this is chapter 8 in which we talk about groups and teams. So a lot can be accomplished in groups instead of individually, and in the workplace, groups and teams are very common. So in software, we have a lot of teams to develop new software. In different organizations, you might have task forces to accomplish certain um, tasks that are temporary. In the College of Business, for example, we have committees for the strategic plan for the college in the next 5 years. We have assessment committees to assess how well students are progressing along. We have certain committees for the graduate programs. And there are various groups within all of the organizations to accomplish certain tasks. There's also product development teams to develop new products to introduce into the market. And that's why discussing groups and teams is crucial when we're talking about organizational behavior. So in this chapter, we'll talk about what are the key characteristics of groups and what they are. We'll talk about how groups develop over time, from time that they're initiated up to the time where they might be dissolved. We'll talk about also what are the effective characteristics of team players, because teams and groups are different. And we'll talk about what the differences are between those two. We'll talk about trust, because it's a key cornerstone of groups and its healthy functioning. We'll also talk about how we can manage effective teams at the end. So taking a look at our first learning objective is talk about what groups are. And groups are two or more freely interacting individuals who share what? Who share certain norms, goals, and have a common identity. For example, a group developing a movie includes several people, like a director, a producer, writers, and actors. They all share a common goal of what? Of making the movie. And they share specific group norms. And we'll talk about what group norms are later on. But the group norms could be like deadlines have to be met, and have a common identity is that they are all part of the film production teams. These groups can either be formal or informal. Formal means that they've been officially created to accomplish specific goals. Okay? However, an informal group exists when the overriding purpose is just friendship or a common interest. For example, a Harley-Davidson owners club is an informal group because they just meet up to share camaraderie, to drive together, and that's why we call it an informal group. A formal group could be one that is formally created within the organization to maybe develop the strategic plan of the organization within the next 5 years. So that is an example of a formal group. Okay, so why do we have formal groups? Because they achieve certain organizational functions and they achieve certain individual functions. Okay, so functions at the organizational level could be things like they allow you to solve specific problems, be more creative, and tackle more complex decisions, because sometimes the decisions as setting the strategic plan or introducing a new product cannot be left to a specific individual. Okay, so for example, when I was part of the committee to promote interactive teaching within the School of Business, this resulted in a creative solution because we had people from multiple departments and disciplines who each had a different way of how they taught and were more effective in the classroom. They also have individual functions. They provide a sense of security for the person because they're not making the decision alone. And they feel that there's that reduced uncertainty, as I said, because they're also part of a group and the responsibility for the decision is shared. So next thing we're going to talk about is that groups tend to have what we call group roles and norms. And what are group roles and norms? Often, every person within the organization has a role. They have a set of expected behaviors for that particular decision. So an accountant is expected to keep the books and make sure that everything is recorded in a proper fashion. However, there are what we call group roles. Group roles are expected for the members of the behavior. Members of the group, right? So the behavior is expected from the members of the group. And these roles could either be called task roles or they could be maintenance role, okay? So for example, as we said previously in the example of a film production team, the producer is responsible for coordinating work among various people like the script writer, the director, and the editor. And that role is called a task role, okay? And you'll see over here, and table 8.2 in your book also details these tasks. And these tasks ensure that the group is on track, right? So in this case, he is the coordinator because he keeps the group on track by communicating between these different people. We also have maintenance roles. Maintenance roles is about keeping the group together. It's not about keeping the people on their task, but it's about keeping them together and avoiding certain conflict, making sure everything is in harmony. So in this case, that's also the role of the producer, is to make sure that he's encouraging the writer, the director, that he's making sure that everything is in harmony. So he's the harmonizer as well. Okay. Norms are a little bit different because it is what we call an attitude, opinions, or feelings, or actions shared by two or more people that guide behavior. Okay, that doesn't add a lot to our understanding, but basically it is an expectation of how people should behave. It's similar to culture. Culture is at the level of a nation, while norms are shared within a specific group. So for example, in the United States, if you go to a restaurant, you're expected to stand in line, and that's part of the culture and norms of people when they walk into a restaurant, is you should walk in line to get service at a restaurant, let's say at McDonald's. If you go to other places, that normal behavior doesn't exist. It's everyone for himself. So you'll see people lined up in like a horizontal line instead of a vertical line. So that's the norm of behavior. Similarly, within groups, that what we have. Okay, so that the some examples of group norms, I would say, is ideas shouldn't be criticized when they're first introduced. Customer service is the top priority of our organization. In several of the places that I've been in higher education, being collegial is sometimes more important than being right in your department as a group, okay? So norms, can also be formal or informal. So they can emerge on their own, being informal, or they can be purposely created, like customer service is our top priority, okay? And norms are always reinforced because they ensure that the group organization survives. It clarifies what we expect from people. As I said, for example, we don't shoot any bad ideas, so it could avoid embarrassment for people. And it clarifies what values are central to our own identity. Is it, in some organizations that I worked in higher education, is it research is very important? Or is that teaching and our students are top priority? At USD, for example, the student is the cornerstone of whatever we do. So that is what defines our values and unique identity. Let's take a look at this question then. Jeannie belongs to a formal work group with established norms. All of the following would be considered norms for her group, except meetings always start on time. B, meetings are limited to 2 hours. Jeannie's boss always mediates conflict through reconciliation or humor. D, members take turns bringing snacks. E, no cell phones are allowed during the meetings. If you said C, then you're right. Jeannie's boss always mediates conflict is a role, and it is not a group norm. A group norm is something that is expected from all of the group members who are within the group. But this is a role that has been assigned to Jeannie's boss.